Bord Gáis Energy, proud sponsors of the GAA All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship and GAA Legends Tour Series of Croke Park. Hashtag hurling to the core.
Hello and welcome to the Throw-In Independent.ie GAA podcast in association with Bord Gáis Energy. I'm Will Slattery and I'm delighted to be joined for our All-Ireland Hurling Final preview by Michael Verney. Michael, hello.
How's it going, Will?
I'm doing very well. It's All-Ireland Hurling Final week. The build-up is kind of really kicking into gear now. We have a great show today. Joe Canning, the recently retired Joe Canning, will be joining us on part 2 to discuss the final, of course, but also maybe a bit about his decision and his great career. We're going to have John Meyler, former Cork manager, and former Limerick All-Star Andrew O'Shaughnessy on now in a few minutes now to discuss the game as well. So it's an action-packed show. The excitement is building.
Big time, yeah. I think people are only calming down after last weekend. We've been used to like a Mayo hangover after big games, but I don't know what the opposite of that is exactly. But it's just carried over for the last 3 or 4 days.
It's called a rollover, Michael. You know, for us drinkers out there. I know
I've no idea, and I don't know anything about day sessions after or anything like that. So I must put my hands up. But between the weekend that we had between Mayo and Offaly, and then even the Meath ladies come back, it was an outrageous weekend. Good to have Andrew on. I haven't chatted Andrew since I basically held his jersey for 70 minutes in a qualifier down in the Gaelic ground. So when we beat them, one of the best hours we ever had for Offaly.
Yeah, it's a funny one. Like, even though Limerick are coming in as big favourites in the bookies, I'm still getting a sense that a lot of people think it's closer than the bookies have it anyway. Like, there's a lot of people I've talked to or even reading the coverage. There does seem to be a lot more excitement than maybe the bookies would give it credit for. Yeah,
all year as Cork have been developing, if I was in any of the counties that they were playing, and even Sunday, if I was a Limerick man, there's that fear that things are just coming right for them, that there's just something brewing between all the underage success. They're contesting, a load of All-Irelands over the next, couple of weeks. I just think there's something brewing, and there'd be a fear if I was from Limerick that Cork could just hit top gear on Sunday, and with all the youth that they have, that they could just explode on the scene. Something similar to what Limerick did in the 2018 All-Ireland to announce their place at the top table.
Well, now it's time for part 1 of our All-Ireland Hurling Final preview. We're delighted to have ex-Cork manager John Meyler with us, as well as former Limerick All-Star Andrew O'Shaughnessy. Thanks so much for joining us, guys.
Morning, Will.
Morning, Will. Nice to be here.
Yeah, no, great to have you. Really looking forward to our chat. And Andrew, we might go to you first, considering Limerick are coming into the game as favourites. I know John probably is hopeful that won't turn out to be the case at the end of the game. But, what is the confidence levels like? Limerick have been so impressive in this year's championship. They're going in as quite strong favourites. Now, Cork have played them quite well over the last number of years. But what's your feeling going into Sunday?
They're rightly so going off form, they're favourites, because they have been performing well all year. But any time we play Cork are the one team that don't fear Limerick. They have performed extremely well. Even go back to the championship match this year, Cork had a penalty to go 5 points up. So that if that penalty goes in, changes the whole game. So I get the understanding where the bookies are coming from, the firm favourites, but that has to be taken in context as well. Cork aren't that far behind Limerick, and they're probably coming into the game exactly where you want it. No one expecting them to win. So that's giving them ample motivation, ample opportunity. So it's line up for a cracker of a game.
Yeah, John, what is the mood down in Cork? Usually when Cork are in a final, they'd be quite bullish about their chances, but given the opposition, what's the feelings there?
I think it's very quiet down here. It's very calm. And it's typical Cork of, the old Cork really of before, when Cork were in an All-Ireland final, they would always be favourites. And, as Andrew said there about the bookies, like Limerick 2-7 and Cork 10-3, I'm actually quite surprised with that, because unlike Andrew, I don't think Limerick have really played this year as well as they can in a lot of the matches this year that they've stuttered, to give a 70-minute performance. In the Cork and Limerick match, I think Cork, bar the 2 goals just before half-time, Cork were well in the game. And I think, coming up with 10 minutes to go, Cork really should have pushed it on, and they didn't. They were 4 points down at a later stage in the game. Should have pushed on, didn't really. I think Cork have improved. The Munster final, looking at Limerick, they played for the second half, not the first half. And in the game against Waterford as well, the first quarter, even though Waterford had played well, Limerick were still a point up. So I think Limerick have been a small bit iffy this year. Cork have just quietly gone about their business, and they've a new style, a new freshness, and certainly won't fear Limerick. And Croke Park will suit this kind of running, mobile, athletic Cork team.
Yeah, Michael, for you, like what are you looking out for going into this Sunday? Like what's the key talking point for you, or what do you think will decide it?
Oh, there's multiple talking points, but I do think it's interesting. I think it's kind of like a role reversal from the 2018 final, where Limerick came in against an experienced Galway side. Limerick were underdogs coming into that game. Maybe not as much talk about Limerick, all about who was going to be able to stop Galway. Limerick were heavy enough underdogs going into that game. It's a role reversal this time around. Cork are underdogs, and they're the ones trying to take down kind of the Limerick juggernaut. And it's interesting. I do echo what John said there. I don't think Limerick have been particularly impressive this year. Probably the first half against Cork in the league, probably that 20-minute spell against Tipperary, and a consistent enough performance outside of the first quarter in the game against Waterford. So I don't think they've probably hit the heights that they'd want to. Now, they are getting better with every game, which is huge for them. Cork are also improving with every game. Like, I think that Clare game was a massive game, and just that save from Patrick Collins to deny Tony Kelly has just, opened up this springboard for their season. They go in, as John said there, it is low key enough, and I think that's a perfect situation for Cork to be in. Less chance of maybe some of their younger players getting overall. I think it's only Patrick Horgan and Seamus Harnedy really that were playing in 2013. So, like, you can say that's inexperience. You can also say that's a lot of young guys with probably bad recent memories of All-Ireland finals at under 20 and under 21 that want to rectify that. So I think they'll come in playing maybe with a bit of youthful abandon, which is always a dangerous thing. And Limerick are coming in, they're old hands at this stage, despite, up until 3 years ago, they hadn't been in an All-Ireland final. So I just think that kind of blend of the youthful abandon coming in against the older kind of more experienced hands is going to be really interesting. But there's battles all over the pitch that are just going to be really intriguing. And I suppose one of the big things for me is Cork's pace, and will they get to actually, show their pace? They maybe didn't get to open up as much against Limerick in that first game as they would like. I think their game is even a bit more exaggerated now since then. I think they've learned a lot since then. And it's just a matter of whether they can actually use that pace and get to actually show the pace against Limerick, who tend to bottle up teams. Like, look at Jamie Barron the last day, one of the fastest players in the game, just bottled up by Limerick in that middle sector. And it's going to be interesting to see whether the likes of Robbie O'Flynn and probably Conor Callahan and a few other guys there in the middle are going to really get to open up. I think that's the really interesting thing. Who will get to play the game on their own terms?
Yeah, there's a few interesting talking points you touched on there. But Andrew, to bring you in on one of them, John and Michael both mentioned that they don't think Limerick can maybe deliver that 70-minute performance or have hit the top gear yet, because John Kiely said after the semi-final performance, what impressed him most is the incremental improvements he feels they've made game to game. Like, do you think that 70-minute performance could be coming this weekend, or are you slightly concerned, to take the lad's point, that they maybe haven't delivered that just yet?
Yeah, I agree. John said it, the word he said, stuttered, and that's the exact way he described Limerick throughout the championship. They haven't put in a full performance throughout 70 minutes. They're kind of stuttering through, but what John Kiely said, incrementally, they have been improving. And to be honest, like, if any team hurls to the best of their potential for 55, 60 minutes, you're going to win a game. So while they haven't hurled a full match, if I prefer to see them hurling a bit more for a longer period of time. But again, you have to be aware of Cork's the danger they pose, the pace to have this youthful abandon, which was referred to already. Similar enough to 99 when they went against Kilkenny. They say youthful team, and people look at it two ways. Oh, they're inexperienced, haven't been in All-Ireland final before, but then also they shouldn't have any fears then, because like youth is a great leveler. Like, when you're young, you don't fear anything, you don't think of the consequences. So it all depends what side of the fence you're sitting on. So if you're from a Cork perspective, youthful abandonment, excellent. They'll come, they want to fear it, and they'll really run this team, and they have extreme pace in that from the whole team, not just the forwards, extreme pace. And with any team, whether it's Limerick or Cork, if you run a team at pace, it's very hard to counteract. So it'll be interesting again.
Yeah, pace is certainly one of the big talking points going into the game. Another talking point, John, is Cork's selection dilemma, especially in the forward line. The replacements made such a big impact in the semi-final. Obviously, you've been on the line for Cork in very recent years. what would you do? Would you start Shane Kingston? Would you start Alan Cadigan, or would you keep them in reserve once again and hope they make a big impact?
I think you got to go now with your strongest team, and you need to start Shane Kingston. There's no point bringing them on if you're 2, 4, 6, 8 points down at a particular point in the game. I think you need to start your strongest team and then bring in subs accordingly. But just going back on the point there, the game now has been different this year over the last few years. The game is now divided up into 4 quarters. So there's one key element here. If you can dominate one of those 4 quarters, if you could get 6 or 8 points up on the opposition, I think it's critical. So I think Cork need to really start with their strongest team possible, and that means like they're down Meyler out the back. So I expect Owen Cadigan to start instead of Meyler. I expect Shane Kingston to start instead of Shane Barrett. There's always a fitness query about Alan Cadigan, about whether he lasts the pace or not. So maybe that Alan is probably better coming off the bench. You'll have Barrett to come off the bench. You'll have Connolly to come off the bench. And I think that will be key. But the game is now divided into 4 quarters. And, a lot of the quarters, and we saw that with the football last Sunday, a lot of the quarters are even. But there's one quarter maybe where you or the opposition can really, really get on top. And that is the difference. And I think Cork need to start with Shane playing. They need to start with Owen Cadigan playing. And that's really it. And get the advantage up and then bring in your subs, because you can't wait. You can't wait for the game to be over to introduce subs.
I think the big thing on that is like, if Shane Barrett drops to the bench, like Shane Barrett's been brilliant coming off the bench. I think he's 1-4 or 1-5 in this year's championship. They still have Alan Connolly. They still have Cadigan to come in. They still have probably Damien Callahan to come in defence as well. They still have plenty of options if Shane Kingston starts. And I kind of would agree with John. Even if Kingston isn't the one to light it up, maybe he's probably not going to get 7 from play if he starts in an All-Ireland final. But if he gets 2 or 3 and tires a Limerick defender for somebody else to come in with 10 or 15 to go and finish the job that he started, I think that's mission accomplished. And they do have a bench. Like, they have a load of guys that can come in various positions there. So I don't think it's just about Shane Kingston or anyone else. I think there's loads of options there for them to come in and finish off the game. But as John said, they have to be in the position to finish off the game or to go and win the game.
You can't wait for the game, and you know what I mean. This is the last game of the year. Well, you cannot wait, and Michael is right. If it takes 2 players for one position, then great. But if you get Shane got 7 points the last day. Barrett was taken off. I think he had a point, so you got 8 points from that one position. So I think it's critical on who are your 5 subs, who are you going to bring in, and who's going to make an impact. But you need to be ahead, and we saw that with Dublin and Mayo last Saturday.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the big talking points, the use of the bench. And Andrew, John mentioned there that, how it's been broken into quarters now, and Limerick are a team that usually use those water breaks very wisely. Paul Knirk's out with the tactics board. It's not just a bit of water they're throwing around there. They're really getting into the weeds on their game plan. Like, how important do you think that has been for the team and using that break wisely?
It's vitally important for any team to use the water breaks, because, again, very rare. There's very little water being taken on board. It's just really key messages, and it's just a reminder. They can't say that much because it's only a short period of time. It's just the coaches, Paul Knirk or whoever it is coming in, just giving your key points and saying, remember this, lads, go back to this. And going back to the semi-final against Waterford. So after the first quarter, I thought Waterford were absolutely superb. They did everything you want against the Limerick team, but they were still 4 points to 3. So as John said, you get on top in 1 quarter maybe, but you have to make it count. So no point, like Waterford, being on top and being a point down. If you're on top, you want to have a 6, 7, 8 point lead and hold on to that and add on to it. So again, quarters are vitally important, maybe more so the third quarter, because if a team can make a push, if Cork or Limerick can make a push to put a bit of distance between the opposition in the third quarter, you're setting yourself up for the last quarter to push on and hold on to that victory.
John, can I just ask you, from a manager's point of view, Limerick have gotten a run in nearly every game at the last 2 years since the quarters were introduced. I would say they've gotten a run in one of the quarters. As a manager, when you see Hegarty knocking over a point and maybe 2 other Limerick points go over, and you can kind of feel the tide turning in that quarter, is there anything in particular that, as a manager, you would do to try and kind of stem that blood loss, or make sure that the damage is not too bad that you're going to be out of the game by the end of that quarter?
Look, I was caught in 2018 with 8 minutes to go, being up 6 points. Jesus, I'm the wrong fella to ask. I don't know who set you up with that question.
I wasn't trying to land you in it or anything like that. It's just like, if you could go back, is there anything maybe that you would try and do to stop the momentum?
Yeah. You try and do everything, you try and pull back your forwards and you try and go defensive and you probably become more cautious and more fearful in a way. But I think the key to that whole thing, Michael, is Cian Lynch. I think that Cork really need to close down Cian Lynch, because Cian Lynch is the conductor of the orchestra in the half forward line around midfield, and he makes Hegarty and all these guys tick. So you won't see him getting 2-5 or 1-6 or something like that, but you will see him with little flicks, hooks, blocks, 20-yard passes and that, and he's conducting all of that, and is trying to close down that middle, and then to stop Kyle Hayes driving forward. Kyle Hayes is a huge issue driving forward, and Cork will really need to stop that. So, if I was back in that position of 2018 again, I'd have brought on Conor Sull as a sweeper. Yes, you'd have done this, but Limerick could have done something else. Same with Tipperary and Limerick in the Munster final. What did we do wrong? Why didn't we do this? You know what I mean? But it flies past you, Michael, in 5 minutes, and the game is over, and say, why didn't we do A, B, and C? But I think Cork, from the minute the ball is thrown in, that Cork need to outwork Limerick all over the place, every position on the field. And if Cork outwork them, and that's going to be difficult now with Hegarty, with Kyle Hayes, with Cian Lynch, with those guys. If Cork outwork them, they'll be there. I've no doubt, because I thought Cork really blew Kilkenny off the field in the extra time for fitness levels. I thought that their power was incredible. Their athleticism was incredible. So it's going to come down to that.
Can I just ask you, John, as well? You mentioned about Ger Meyler being out, and you also mentioned there how important Cian Lynch is. Mark Coleman kind of picked up Lynch in the Munster semi-final when he was playing centre forward, but when he drifted out, Meyler kind of picked him up. Who do you expect? Do you expect the designated man marker to follow him everywhere, or do you expect Coleman to follow him when he's in that centre forward position, and again a midfielder to drop back and pick him up when he drifts out?
Well, in my time, Lynch was midfield, and they would have had Bill Cooper to mark him. But I think Cork will drop back a midfielder to mark him. I don't think Coleman is not a man marker. Coleman is a loose, sweeper number 6 player, between number 3 and number 6. And I think Coleman will float there. I think somebody else will pick up Lynch. I would certainly pick up Lynch, and even if I didn't puck a ball, I'd be happy with that. I think he needs to be closed down, because they play it through him, and they play little pop 20, 30-yard passes, and then he plays the pop-out passes then to the rest, Flanagan, those kind of guys. So that would be my reading of it. That whole midfield area, and as you said earlier about, Jamie Byrne, probably one of the best players of the year so far, was closed down against Limerick in the semi-final. So Limerick won't want Fitzy and those guys coming through. Conor Cahalane won't want those guys coming through with pace, and just popping off balls to Hoggy and those inside. So, look, it'll be fascinating there in the middle, but I would certainly be talking to Cian Lynch fairly closely anyway,
Good man. Talking to him is probably a nice way of putting it, I'd say, yeah.
It's important.
And Andrew, I suppose, you mentioned earlier how pace could be one way Cork will look to go at Limerick, but where do you see Limerick having the advantage on Sunday? What areas do you think they have the capability of getting on top and possibly being the key to a win?
If the ball breaks and it's into ruck situations around the middle third, and if Cork try to take Limerick on there, try to contest it, middle third, make it scrappy and tough, I think Cork will struggle. It's very hard. So Limerick are a physical team. Naturally, they're big, they're strong, and that's their main. They can hurl. There's no question they can hurl. But where they kind of outwork teams in a close environment, their short passing, 5, 10, 15-yard passing works. But if you try to take them on at their strength, I don't think so. I think Cork should just stick to what they're excellent at. Pace, balls up the wing, run fast. Tim O'Mahony will offer and same trade as Kyle Hayes going forward. That's the exact same position they're playing. So two halfbacks going forward at pace. That'll create the space up for Cork if Tim Mahoney's going forward, because then you have Luke Meade bombing in from midfield and Dara Fitz, needless to say, you Robbie O'Flynn, Conor Calhoun, all at pace, and Seamus Harland, all at pace. So for Cork to get the advantage, they need to attack Limerick at pace. Obviously, I hope they don't, but that's the whole key of the middle third. So to stop Cork at pace, you have to stop them from the original run. So if they get up ahead of steam, there's no stopping that. You're just hoping for a last-ditch tackle, and that's what you want to avoid from a Limerick perspective.
Andrew, have you been impressed with how Limerick, I suppose, have gone about their business, in the sense that in 2019 they're obviously caught by Kilkenny in that semi-final. They're going for back-to-back for the first time in the county's history, which brings its own bit of pressure, but they don't seem to be getting carried away this time or caught up in that kind of hype in any way. They seem to be going about their business, and they are favourites to begin. They might win, they might lose, but it doesn't seem to be maybe hype that will derail them, or a bit of complacency. Yeah, no, I'm extremely proud of this Limerick team. There's nothing but pride and admiration for them, the way they conduct their business, because if you see any interviews they do, they all give separate interviews, they all talk off the cuff, but they don't say the same thing, but it all comes back to the same theme. So whether that's John Kiely, Paul Knock, Karen Corrett, or anyone else involved, they have this team fine-tuned, and they seem, unlike for inter-county teams, they actually seem to be enjoying themselves, which is a rare thing, because very rarely when you start under 5s and 6s, you say go out and enjoy yourself, but you don't say it inter-county senior because it's about winning. But there's enjoyment. If you go about trying to enjoy the game, invariably you'll have the results, and that seems to be the case with Limerick. So we'll hope for plenty more, because again, these things are to go down the cycles, and this is a never seen before period of time for Limerick hurling. So obviously enough, I want it to continue as long as possible, but equally enough, it could be gone at the weekend, and we might be back here for 10, 15, 20 years. And John, you mentioned 2018 earlier, and how Limerick got the run on that Cork team and ultimately won in extra time. As the flip side happened against Kilkenny, that Cork were able to come back in extra time. Like, how important do you think that could be for the development of this team, the momentum they could generate from this time, losing the lead but being able to get over the line?
I think the Kilkenny game has given Cork huge belief in themselves, and huge belief in finishing out games like that the old Cork in the 60s, the 70s would have done. And I think these young fellas, Tim and those, Niall O'Leary, Conor Cahalane, they have no baggage whatsoever, and they're coming into this fresh. They're coming in like the Jimmy's team in '99, so they're all fresh, and I think huge momentum and they'll bring that to the table. So it's just getting out there now and playing at 3:30 on Sunday, and that's the key thing to them. But they'll have learned an awful lot, and also getting over the Clare game. Is another kind of 2013 monkey off their back kind of thing, and beating Kilkenny, as I said, there in extra time, and even though like they messed it up there with the goal in the last few minutes, and Hoggy missed the 65 to go 4 up. So that will give them huge energy, huge confidence, and a freshness, and they'll bring that to the table now on Sunday.
Yeah, Michael, because I was Cork's first win in Croke Park since 2013 in a championship game. Like, how big is that to get, as John said, that monkey off your back?
I think it's huge, and if you're going to win, it's so much better to win rather than falling over the line, even if they'd fallen over the line by a point in normal time. To win convincingly, I would say, in extra time is huge, having made a load of mistakes. And I think Dermot O'Sullivan was talking after about how, Tim O'Mahony, who was probably soloing out with that ball at the end and maybe looking for the final whistle, how he was over that mistake the second to go into the dressing room, and he was like his old self when extra time started. And that's a great sign of a side, a great sign of a man in him, that type of a thing didn't faze him, because it probably would have crippled other players and some other teams. So I think that'll be huge. I think there could be kind of a release valve of any pressure maybe that was on them is gone now. I don't like the idea of like bonus territory or anything like that, but they are coming in to this game in a perfect situation. Confidence has to be an all-time high for this squad anyway, and I think they'll feel that they have the tools to take down Limerick if things click. There were stages of that Munster semi-final where it did click and they looked very dangerous. And even I was just looking back at it, even last night, people would say that Cork need to go short against Limerick and work the ball. A lot of the time they went long, particularly in the latter stages, and we're getting a good bit of joy long, not necessarily putting it down on top of two lads, but maybe putting the ball into space and creating a bit of space. So something Andrew said there as well, I think is key. Cork can't, I don't think Cork can beat Limerick the way Waterford tried to beat them, by almost, physically trying to overcome them and fight fire with fire. They need to play around them. They need to stick to their game plan. And even if they're frazzled at different stages on Sunday. They need to stick to what they're doing, and I think it's been honed more and more as every game has come on. And yeah, I think Cork are coming in a great position, I have to say.
It's time to get predictions now. I might go to you, Andrew, first. Limerick or Cork? Who do you fancy?
I'd be biased. I go Limerick by 3.
John?
I think Cork by 3. Yeah.
So I guess I think it was always going to come from Michael for the decisive casting vote, given our two guests. So Michael, you have the last word then.
I was going down through all the matchups in my head, and it was advantage Limerick in probably 10 to 11 of the matchups when I looked at it on paper, and like that could totally change. I probably would have said the same going into
on paper, Michael.
Well, that's true, John. Yeah, hurling is not played on paper,
not played on paper, Michael.
But I just do think an awful lot has to go right for Cork for them to win the game, and I think it's going to have to be an underperformance from Limerick. Something maybe like they're going to have to, not to the extent that Galway did in 2018, but it's going to have to be probably something we haven't really seen from Limerick so far. And again, Cork are going to have to raise their game a couple of levels. So it'd be Limerick by 4 or 5 in the wind-up, but I do expect it to be tight up until the hour mark. One thing I will say as well is Limerick's bench, don't be fooled maybe. I don't think Limerick's bench is as strong as it has been in other years, and I'd actually think Peter Casey being available for the final tips the balance, because that would have caused Limerick all sorts of other conundrums and questions with who was going to come in for him, and then potentially who was going to be the first forward sub in. So I think his availability is huge, and I think that'll probably just swing it in the wind-up. But yeah, it's Limerick by 4 or 5 for me.
Well, it's certainly set up to be an exciting weekend and a great game for the moment. John, Andrew, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Michael.
Well, we're delighted to be joined for part 2 of our All-Ireland Hurling Final preview by the recently retired Galway star, Joe Canning. Joe, how are you?
Yeah, good now, Will. Good. Yeah, not too bad.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. I suppose it's probably been a crazy few weeks for you. All-Ireland Hurling Final time, you're probably usually hoping to be involved in the game, but now those days are over for you now. Has it been a strange couple of weeks now, kind of after your announcement?
No, not really. It's still the same as ever. Still people looking for tickets for an All-Ireland final. I think you can have them on tap or something anyway. But yeah, there's still loads of people in Galway, and I'm living in Limerick, so all Limerick friends are looking for tickets at the moment.
Yeah, people have been coming up on the streets begging you to reconsider your decision, or have they left you alone?
No. I've kept pretty quiet in the last few weeks and stuff like that. So no, nobody really coming up to the street.
Yeah, and what's it like for you when an All-Ireland final is in the thick of it, and when Galway aren't involved? Do you like the build-up? Do you watch the games? Do you like getting involved in it, or do you when your hurling season is over, do you like turn things off and you don't really like watching games when you're not really involved in them?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mix of both, really. It depends on my mood more so than anything. I'm not too bothered. I'm not going to the match or anything this weekend. So yeah, I don't really have much of an interest in going to these kind of matches unless maybe Galway are involved or something like that, or somebody I know or a friend is involved. I wouldn't have much interest in going to them, to be honest.
So in terms of Limerick versus Cork this weekend, are you surprised as to the final matchup? Obviously Limerick would have been favourites going in, but from a Cork perspective, are you surprised as to the final 2 teams we've arrived at?
I am and I haven't. To be honest, they're there on merit, both teams. I kind of fancy Kilkenny coming into the semi-final. I thought it might be a year too soon for Cork, but they're there 100% on merit. They played very well, obviously, in the semi-final, and they done very well to get there. So there's no real pressure on them coming into the final compared to, I think all the pressure is on Limerick coming into the final. So Cork have a shot at nothing really, and can go all out at it.
Just a word on Limerick, Joe. What's it like coming up against them? They're obviously the standard bearers now. You played against them last year, obviously, in the All-Ireland semi-final before you had to go off. What sort of challenges, I suppose, even physically in particular, do they present to opposition teams?
Yeah, I suppose they hunt in packs, really. They bring out their half-forward line out the field. They don't really worry too much about, they leave a lot of space in their full forward line. So there's a lot of bodies, I suppose, in around the middle third area. And when there's a lot of bodies there, it's hard to kind of win possession and get clean possession and clean ball into your full forward line at the opposite end. So, but they're playing this system for 5 or 6 years now at this stage. Do you know what I mean? It's not as if like it's second nature to them, and they haven't, even through personnel over the last 3-4 years, not much has changed in their team. Maybe 1 or 2 in different positions, but they haven't changed their game plan too much, I think, over the last number of years, and it's worked for them. And it is physical, but at the same time, I think you have to move fast and not look for that physicality. I think some teams, you always see now, they look for physicality more so than try and avoid it. And if you can avoid getting into them and move the ball as fast as possible, you know, it could help you a lot.
Is that what you expect Cork to do on Sunday? Like, Cork don't have, would say, the same kind of size profile maybe as a Waterford, who tried to probably hop off Limerick in the early stages and fight fire with fire, whereas Cork have kind of livelier, kind of riskier players. Do you expect them to try and like move around Limerick rather than engaging with them?
Yeah, well, I don't think they'll want to. I don't think they. Even Kilkenny would be a physical team as well, and Cork tried to run at them and run around them more so than run through them. So definitely, I think it's more suited to Cork if there's less physicality in it and you can hurl away. And I don't think they'll be looking to match up physically with them as much. But then Limerick will be looking to try and match up physically with Cork, I think, and get on top of them. You know. And
you obviously played Limerick in their first All-Ireland final victory in 2018. You know, how different are they? Not even in terms of how they're playing, but in terms of how well they're playing or how well drilled they are, or how much they've honed this system between 2018 and now. Do you see them as a much better team, like going into Sunday, than they were when you played them in 2018?
Oh yeah, for sure. They're like, as I said, they're playing the system for a long time now, and they can tweak it depending on who they're playing as well. And as I said, they've made some positional switches, but the personnel are still much the same, and they're probably at an age profile now where they're in their probably pomp. Do you know what I mean? So for sure, I think they're a way better team than what they were in 2018 against us. Yeah.
Can I ask you, Joe, how, I mentioned about how physically demanding the game is, and you mentioned about how little time you have on the ball. How frustrating is that as a player, like particularly around the half hour line midfield, even just looking at like Jamie Barron the last day, one of the best players in the country, just denied the ball almost and denied space. How difficult is that when you're on the pitch? They don't seem to give you the space and time to work within.
Yeah, it is difficult, but you have to work within the confines, and you have to just kind of rely on your teammates as well to make that space for you. You know, it's not just 1 or 2 guys kind of doing their own thing. It has to be collective. So like you can try, like possession is a huge part of the game now, and I think a lot of people it's 9/10 of the law now, and if you like get a ball and hit it as quickly as possible without looking into your full forward line, and it's cut out by a cornerback or fullback, it's not the thing to do in a way, which in fact sometimes all you need is maybe one ball hit really quick, and you have the likes of Pat Horgan that can just, you know, turn really quick and it could be a score straight away. So I think for Cork, they'll have to move the ball a lot quicker out of that middle third area than they've done before, and that's one way of trying to bypass that kind of battleground, I suppose, in the middle third.
And Joe, in terms of, like, you know, these two teams getting to this stage of the year after the kind of disjointed and disruption there has been earlier in the season, similarly in 2020, like how difficult has that been for inter-county players, you know, for yourself, for your teammates and for other teams? Do you think, has it been massively difficult to kind of keep the same standards you might have had in the pre-COVID years where there wasn't as much disruption?
I think it's fairly okay. Like, it's what's really different is you don't talk out in the dressing room, I suppose. Talk out in the stand, stuff like that. You don't travel on a bus to a match. you don't stay away for a training weekend in a hotel or stuff like that. That probably adds to a little bit more closeness within the group. That's probably the biggest couple of things. But training wise and stuff like that, I don't think there's much difference. You still train the same amount of times as you used to before COVID. So obviously it stopped for a while collectively until we were allowed back. But it's probably a help for a lot of players that you don't get flogged for a good few months early on in the year and before you play any matches. So it's probably a help more so than anything in that sense, you know.
Can I just ask you, Joe, over the last couple of weeks, have you gotten a chance to look back on your own career much? Have you thought back on much things yet? Or
No. I'm too busy back with the club. Training more with the club now than I nearly did with the county. So I don't. It was funny, like the Friday evening after we got beaten by Waterford, I was going out training and I was at home and Mum and Dad were like, "Oh, enjoy your retirement now." And I just looked at them and I was togged out for Tumney gear and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is summer retirement now, we're just going out training again." So no, I don't really look back on that. You see all the stuff on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, but you know, it is what it is. It's over now and that's it.
Can I just ask you as well, was there like at the start of the year, had you this in your head that this was going to be it, or is there a moment in particular that you can remember where you just said, "Oh, maybe this is the final year"?
To be honest, I was probably thinking about it last year in a way. Even last year. So it was always in my mind, and just this year then with everything through injuries and stuff like that, it just reinforced it and that was it. And I, like, people are at how's retirement and stuff. I don't know until Galway play next year how I'll feel. Like, there's no point in saying it's good or it's bad. Until Galway hit the field next year in championship, that's when you know whether it's the right decision or not. And that's being straight up about it. You know, people were saying, "Are you happy?" I'm still the same as I was, so happy enough. Yeah.
Was there a case last year at the end of the Limerick game, Joe, as well, where I presume if you had any thoughts of retiring at the end of that year, having, you know, been carted off in Croke Park is not how I'm sure you wanted to see your last action with Galway. Is that one of the reasons why maybe that you stayed on again even this year?
It wasn't really dangerous. More the fact that, like, we went toe to toe with Limerick last year and lost by 3 points we were level on 72 minutes, I think it was. And we made a lot of unforced errors and a lot of mistakes in the game. So, like, half me was thinking, like, geez, imagine if we just didn't make as many mistakes. Who knows? We could have beaten them. So, you know, that's always in the back of your head, that you love another crack off the likes of Limerick and the best, but it wasn't to be. And then just with the way this year went, that was it, you know. You'd always like your own dreams in your head to go out in a high in All-Ireland or something like that, but that's just the way it goes, you know.
Yeah, interesting you say you kind of won't know how you'll feel about retirement until next year when Galway you take the field. Is there any part of you that is a little worried or slightly concerned about, you know, how you will fill the void of, you know, no more Galway hurling? You know, obviously you love playing with your club, but any part of you a little even intrigued to see how that will feel when it does kind of come back?
At the moment, no. I just want to play with my club and play as much golf as I can. That's the big thing, and like, just do kind of normal things that I probably wasn't able to do for the last 15, 17 years. So I'm just looking forward to getting back with the club and playing as much golf as I can.
How important, Joe, is that Portumna is obviously, you know, where you developed, where you learned everything, where you know, trained and played matches and won All-Irelands with your brothers growing up. How important is it having, like, you're naturally going to be away for so long when you're a county player? How important that even how last year finished up with the club, how important is it that you give as much as you have back to the club now for the next few years?
Yeah, it's huge. Like, there was a lot made out of us going out of senior A last year, but it's I don't think people realise that you can still qualify for you can still win the championship from senior B. 6 teams out of senior B and 6 teams out of senior A qualify for the knockout stages. So it's not really any difference. being in Senior B than being in Senior A in Galway, which is a funny championship to be straight up about it, but that's for another day.
You're not going to complain at the moment anyway.
No, it's you can actually get a lot further from Senior B than you can from Senior A.
It's like being in the old Division 1B in the league, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. It's a strange one to get your head around if you're not from Galway and you haven't been in it. So no, it's grand. We have a lot of young guys. Like a lot of our guys are 19, 20, 21 years of age. And then there's a couple of guys my age, maybe 2 or 3 of us that are around the 30 age mark. So if we can kind of bring on those kind of 21, 22 year olds for the next couple of years until they get to mid 20s, then, you know, there'll be other guys then coming on underage. So yeah, go back and train a few underage teams as well in the club as well, if I can. If they want me to give a hand out. So that sort of stuff is always important. And it's something that I'll try to do as long as I can anyway.
And if you find that your body is feeling good and your form is still as it is, would you open the door on coming back at any stage, even like in a year or 2 years or 3 years?
Who would go away?
Yeah.
Jeez, no. That's it now. I'm very... if people know me kind of personally, I'm stubborn enough don't know if stubborn, but I kind of, if I say something, that's it. That's the way it is. There's no return for me, I'm afraid. That's the way it is.
Yeah, and I was interested when you said that you haven't looked back, or it's not really your style, because I've heard you say that a few times in various interviews. Why do you think that is? That I suppose, you know, you don't really like kind of looking back, or, you know, looking at all the, you know, praise coming in for you. Does it just make you a little kind of uncomfortable reading it about yourself, or why do you think that is?
One part of it is, yeah, uncomfortable. Another part of it is I'm a bit weird with kind of social media and stuff like that. Like, you have people tweeting about putting out videos and saying what a great career, but is it really to say I have a great career? Is it to get a couple of likes for yourself on your own page? Do you know, that kind of way? I find that really funny. I've said it before that I think more about a person that it texts me or ring me up rather than tweet about my retirement, to be honest. But it's the kind of world we live in, that if you don't tweet or about something, people will be wondering, oh geez, why didn't he tweet him? Did they not get on or something like that? I don't know. But yeah, I feel uncomfortable with them kind of things. Therefore, maybe in 20 years' time, when I was there with my dad and my uncle there the other day on Sunday. It's my dad's birthday next week, so we had a few drinks together, and we were just talking about when they were hurling back in the day and stuff like that. So when I'm 76 in whatever amount of years, that's when I look back on those things and kind of reminisce and stuff with, maybe, you never know, my nephews or my sons or whatever it is, hopefully in years to come. So I'll enjoy it that time. But when I'm still playing club and stuff like that, you have to be still in the moment of these things.
It's part of it, Joe, as well, that you can't really pat yourself on the back while you're still playing. Like you just can't. Like, it's kind of nearly a weak mindset almost as well, because complacency probably sets in too then.
It depends on your personality more so than that. Like, some people kind of love the attention that's put upon them when they retire as well, and then that's their own personality, and that's, you kind of, who knows? Like, I've said it, that I hope I don't become an expert on hurling or football or soccer or whatever it is through Twitter, because you've often seen guys that have retired over the past number of years that comment on everything now on Twitter, and you're kind of going, are they missing the buzz, or are they missing the attention of being an intercounty player and trying to fill it in a different way, maybe to try and still stay relevant? But everybody's I suppose there is different in a way in how they want to fill things, and I'd be happy enough just play away with the club, as I said, and play a bit of golf and stay as low key as possible. Yeah,
I was interested because you mentioned, when you said you like to play a bit of golf now, and you mentioned you'd like to do just kind of more normal things. Like, is that what you kind of want, more of a normal life than what you maybe had in the spotlight? Because obviously from such a young age, everyone knowing you in your local area, are you hoping for maybe a more, as you say, low key or normal life now?
Yeah, for sure. That's the plan anyway. Like, yeah, I'm going up to play pro-am tomorrow in Donegal and stuff like that. That you wouldn't get to do any if you were still playing inter-county or whatever. So, stuff like that I kind of hopefully I'll get to do, or even go on holidays and stuff like that. I'm away on holidays now for the next couple of week and a half or whatever. So stuff like that you normally don't get to do. So hopefully that bit of normality anyway, yeah.
And you mentioned you may be helping out with some teams at the club. Like, would you like to get into management generally, or coaching? Is that like even at a higher level than that, like, inter-county level potentially one day? Have you thought anything about that?
No, that's underage with Portumna. That'll be it. Now it's like that might change in years to come, but at the moment, I don't think I'd be a good coach or manager for senior or like a bit higher up. I think I'd be better around the young guys in the maybe under 14s, under 12s or something like that. Yeah, I'd expect kind of high standards from senior players and full grown adults that you wouldn't expect from kids. So I'd be probably a little bit more laid back training the kids than I would be at a senior level. So I'd have no interest in training any like senior teams or anything like that at the moment. Anyway.
Can I just ask you, Joe, did you enjoy your inter-county career? Were there parts of it that you didn't enjoy, or was it generally a really enjoyable experience?
Yeah, no, it was like probably 90% of the time it was enjoyable. Like there was times when obviously everybody can't enjoy it fully. Do you know what I mean? There's no point in saying that it was the best years of my life. It was, in a way. It was 90% of the time, but it was like looking back, I've won everything that there has to be won. The only thing I don't have is I think an under 14 All-Ireland.
Not bad complaint, no, in fairness.
So like everything else that I could have won, I've done it. So yeah, when you look at those kind of things, you kind of go, what's not to enjoy, but yeah, the pressures and stuff like that of always having to perform on the day, that's one thing that I won't miss. That's one thing that I'm glad to see the end of.
Was that a weight at times, Joe? Like were there times where that felt like a burden almost?
Oh yeah. That was huge. That was a huge part, I suppose, of me. I never really I don't know if I gave it off or whatever, but because I'd be pretty laid back. But that was always in my mind, I suppose. Always in the back of my mind. It wasn't like overwhelming or anything like that. I learned to deal with it because it was from a young enough age, from 15, 16 years of age, that I had that. So, I kind of learned how to deal with it. But then, when some other stuff was hard enough to deal with at times, but that's just part and parcel of GA and kind of the social media world, more so in the last number of years than it was at probably the start. It was probably easier to deal with it at the start than it was in the last number of years,
Did any part of you ever want to be maybe slightly less good at hurling in a way, or slightly so you wouldn't have such a high profile, so the pressure wouldn't maybe be as great, to be still an inter-county player and be a good player, but maybe not be the main man? Did that ever cross your mind?
No, because it was still there was still the opinion that some people thought I was good, some people thought I was shit. So that's everybody's opinion. Do you know what I mean? So no, I'd never change because I worked hard at it. It wasn't as if it was just given to me, and I didn't have to work at these things. I worked my arse off at trying to be the best I could be for so long. So. No, I wouldn't change it.
Can I just ask you on that, Joe? A lot of people see, line balls flying over from 80 yards, and people are nearly, and I know you said earlier on this year, not everybody can, pull over a free from 100 yards. How much work would you have put in even at a younger age, or how, like, did you sustain like a serious level of, you know, practicing these things the whole way throughout your career?
I did and I didn't. Like, it might sound a bit strange, but like, I probably practiced more when I was a kid than I do when I was a senior, outside of training. I probably practiced a routine that I haven't changed for, like, I have the same routine since I was probably 15, 16 years of age, that I haven't really changed at all, really, for any like sideline or free. So I think once you trust your routine, that's 9/10 of the law, and being comfortable with that, because like I do see even Patrick Horgan now taking a free, like, and if I try to take a free, I don't know, one day down the pitch, like, he rises the ball and he's still looking at the goals, and I'm like, when I look back, the ball has gone off the hurl, and I'm like, how does he do it? You know, so, but that's his routine, you know what I mean? And he's hitting frees since I played against him under 16 All-Ireland. I remember Armagh Co-op back in the day. We played them in a 16s final and we beat them in the replay, and Hoggy was playing that day and he was still the same as he is now, taking frees almost. So I think if you look at anybody, they've got a routine when they were young and they stuck with it as much as possible, and it's like second nature to you then almost, and you don't have to, I suppose, practice as much when you get older as you did when you were younger, trying to perfect that in a way that is comfortable for you, if you know what I mean.
No, I know what you mean. Last one for me, Joe. Just wondering, is there any if you could go back and relive any one performance or any one day throughout your county career, what would it be?
Probably 18, probably that last free in 18. Yeah, probably strike a little bit easier or something. Yeah.
Just that's a bit forced, kind of, was it?
Yeah. I've spoken about it. I tried to hit it too hard and I kind of mishit it a little bit. That's one, or else, like, I think back, maybe if I played it short and got the pass back, but that's one that I'm reminded of nearly. If I meet somebody new from Limerick down here now, every time a new person I meet, they remind me of that. So that's one that I'd love to relive and hopefully have a different outcome of it. But
it's funny you should say that, because I thought you were going to say, I immediately thought happy memories. I thought you were going to say 2017, but I suppose that's the competitor in you, that it's probably the one that got away that would that you'd remember most almost.
Yeah, that's like happy memories. Why you're like, I wouldn't, I'd rather have more happy memories, that kind of way, and you change something that was bad. But that's one definitely that I think got away from us. We just didn't perform in the day and made a lot of mistakes for their goals. Like, all their goals was nearly or unforced errors. So that was a kind of a hard one to take, and it's probably the hardest one still.
Maybe just last question before we let you go, just the prediction then for Sunday, Limerick versus Cork. Who do you think will come out on top?
I think all the pressure, to be honest, is on Limerick. I think, like, all the talk down here anyway is of being one of the greatest teams to play the game, and like the likes of Kilkenny that was going for the 5 in a row or whatever a couple of years ago. So if they don't win, it's 2 All-Irelands in 4 years. So it's kind of a few questions. If they do win, they could win 3 or 4 in a row. Do you know what I mean? Cork have they can just go in and hurl away. And even in this year's Munster Championship, Hoggy had a penalty to go, I think 5 or 6 points up early on, and they missed it. And then Limerick got 2 goals just before half time. Like that, if they got that goal and didn't concede those 2, it could have been a different kind of a game. Be interesting. I'm going to find it interesting how Cork set up on their backs. Like, Robert Downey had a brilliant game. I actually thought he was brilliant the last day at full back. But against Limerick, I think he'd be better suited in the half back line. because the reason is I don't think Limerick are going to hit in high ball like Kilkenny did. And Robert Downey is very good in the air. And his best work was done in the air the last day, I thought. And with, I don't know if Jerry Meyler could be playing. I don't know, do you know?
No, I don't think so. It's not looking like it. No.
So, like, he's going to be a big loss. He's kind of a man marker more so than Anton. And then who do you play? Either wing back or full back. I'd put in Sean O'Leary Hayes. I think he's a serious player. I think he'd suit full back on Aaron Gallan or whoever. He'd be fast, he'd be tight. Because you wouldn't want to worry about, I don't think Limerick are going to bombard them with high balls going in. I think they'll be playing low into the corners, cross field, and a few of guys with pace. You nearly need bigger guys in their half back line for puck outs and stuff like that. So I think Limerick probably have just enough. I think, as I said at the start, I thought Kilkenny there just because I thought Cork might need another year. But I think Limerick by 2 or 3 points, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Cork win it.
Based on how deeply you gave an answer there, I think your inter-county management or coaching thing could change in time. You never know.
Well, that's just reading the game. Like, if you just look at it, it's pretty easy kind of come up with that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So, like, you look at Billy Ryan had a good first half the last day, but he was getting low ball into the corners on Robert Downey, and that's not bad reflection on Robert Downey. I think I actually said it to a few. I thought he was actually Cork's best defender, but I just think Limerick won't play into his hands by hitting high ball in. That's just an opinion, and I hope I'm proved wrong. But that's just an opinion. You know, I think he's a great hurler, but I don't think Limerick could be playing to his strengths. I think they'll play to their strengths and hit balls into the corner.
Well, if we don't get you an inter-county manager, maybe on the Sunday game instead to give some of your tactical analysis in the years to come potentially. But Joe, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it and enjoy the game.
Cheers. Thanks, guys. All the best.
That's all we have time on the throw-ins. All-Ireland Hurling Final preview in association with Bord Gáis Energy. Thanks so much for joining us. We will be back next Monday with another podcast reviewing the big game between Cork and Limerick. And in the meantime, you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, or listen on independent.ie. So until next time, thanks for listening and goodbye.
Bord Gáis Energy, proud sponsors of the GAA All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship and GAA Legends Tour Series of Croke Park. #Hurling to the Core.